In Washington, D.C., where power and politics rule every conversation, one woman's simple act of kindness was about to change everything. Shayla Jackson never expected to make headlines. As a single mother working at an upscale restaurant, she lived by her mama's golden rule: kindness doesn't cost a thing, but its value is priceless. But when she showed compassion to a troubled teenage boy who turned out to be Barron Trump, her world turned upside down overnight. Fired from her job and thrust into a media storm, Shayla thought she'd lost everything. She didn't know that someone powerful had been watching, someone who saw the true value of a heart of gold. What happened next would prove that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can open the biggest doors. Shayla Jackson's feet ached as she moved between the tables at Le Petit Bistrot, the fancy restaurant where she had worked for the past 5 years. The crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, but she barely noticed them anymore. What she did notice was the photo of her daughter, Maya, that she kept in her apron pocket. One quick peek at that smiling face was all she needed to keep going on. Tough nights like this one. Just a few more hours, she whispered to herself, adjusting her black uniform. She hadn't planned to work tonight, but when her manager called asking for help, she couldn't say no. Maya's 8th grade class was planning a trip to New York City, and every extra dollar would help make that dream come true. The restaurant was quieter than usual for a Tuesday night. The regular customers, lawyers in expensive suits, and politicians, pretending not to be politicians, had mostly finished their meals and left. Shayla was wiping down a table near the window when the bell above the door chimed. A tall, lanky teenage boy walked in, wearing jeans, a gray hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. He looked around nervously, like he wasn't sure he should be there. Shayla noticed his shoulders were slumped, the way Maya's got when she'd had a rough day at school. "Welcome to Le Petit Bistrot," Shayla said warmly, grabbing a menu. "Table for one?" The boy nodded, not meeting her eyes. As she led him to a quiet corner table, she caught a glimpse of his face under the cap. Her heart skipped a beat. She recognized him immediately. Living in Washington, D.C., you got used to seeing famous faces, and this one she'd seen in countless news stories. Barron Trump. But something in her heart, the same thing that made her a good mother, told her this wasn't a time for star-struck reactions. This was just a teenager who looked like he needed a safe place to be himself for a while. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" she asked, acting as if he were any other customer. She noticed his hands fidgeting with the menu's corner. "Just water, please," he mumbled, his voice quiet and unsure. When Shayla returned with his water, she saw him quickly wiping his eyes. Without missing a beat, she placed an extra napkin on the table, pretending not to notice. Her mama had always said that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is pretend not to see someone's tears. "Our chocolate cake is really good for rough days," she said gently. "And trust me, I've had enough rough days to be an expert." That got a small smile out of him. "Maybe after dinner," he said, his voice a little stronger. As the evening went on, Shayla kept an eye on her young customer while serving her other tables. She noticed he kept checking his phone, each time looking more worried. She wondered if his security team was searching for him, but it wasn't her place to ask. He ordered the simplest thing on the menu, spaghetti and meatballs, and ate slowly, like he was trying to make the moment last. Shayla made sure his water glass stayed full and brought him extra bread without asking. When it came time for the bill, she saw him reach for his wallet with trembling hands. He pulled out a credit card and handed it to her. Shayla ran it through the machine, but the dreaded red letters flashed. "Declined." She saw the panic cross his face. watched his cheeks flush red with embarrassment. Without hesitation, she pulled out her own credit card and slipped it into the machine. "Don't worry about it," she said quietly, bringing back the receipt for him to sign. "We all forget things sometimes. Just promise me you'll get home safe, okay?" He stared at her, surprise clear in his eyes. "You know who I am, don't you?" Shayla smiled gently. "Tonight, you're just a young man who needed a quiet place to eat dinner. Everyone deserves that sometimes." His eyes welled up with tears again, but this time he didn't try to hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. "I won't forget this." As she watched him leave, pulling his cap lower and disappearing into the dark DC night, Shayla said a quick prayer for his safe return home. She didn't know what had brought him to her section of Le Petit Bistrot tonight, but she hoped he found whatever peace he was looking for. Later, as she counted her tips and got ready to head home, Shayla thought about Maya waiting for her. She'd have to dip into her savings to cover the boys' meal, which meant a little less for the New York trip. Fund. But, as her mama always said, sometimes doing the right thing costs a little money, but not doing it costs a lot more. Shayla couldn't have known then how much those words would mean in the days to come, or how her simple act of kindness would change not just her life, but many others. All she knew was that she'd helped someone who needed it. And that was enough. For tonight. The metro ride home that night was quiet, with only a few late-night workers nodding off in their seats. Shayla checked her phone, finding 3 missed texts from Maya. "Mom, made dinner. Saved you some. Hope your extra shift is going okay. Love you. Don't work too hard." Shayla smiled, her heart warming despite her tired feet. At 13, Maya was growing into such a thoughtful young woman. The thought of the New York trip money made her sigh, but she pushed the worry aside. They'd figure it out, just like they always did. Walking up the stairs to their small apartment, Shayla could smell something sweet. She opened the door to find Maya asleep on the couch, a plate of slightly burnt chocolate chip cookies on the coffee table next to her math homework. "Baby girl," Shayla whispered, gently shaking her daughter's shoulder. "Time for bed." Maya's eyes fluttered open. "Mom, how was work? I tried making cookies like Grandma's recipe, but they're a little crispy." Shayla picked up a cookie, taking, a big bite. "They're perfect. Just what I needed after tonight." "Something happen?" Maya sat up, suddenly alert. She had always been good at reading her mother's moods. Shayla sat down, weighing her words carefully. "Just helped someone who was having a rough time. Sometimes people just need a little kindness, you know? Like when Mrs. Rodriguez brought us dinner when you had the flu," Maya asked, referring to their neighbor's thoughtfulness last winter. "Exactly. Like that." Shayla hugged her daughter close. "Speaking of kindness, thank you for making dinner. But now, it's way past your bedtime, young lady." As Maya got ready for bed, Shayla changed out of her work clothes and counted the money in their New York trip jar. Even with tonight's tips, they were still short. She'd have to figure out how to make up for the dinner she'd covered. Just then, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Barron Trump missing for 3 hours. Secret Service, silent on details. Shayla's stomach tightened. She quickly turned off her phone, not wanting to think about what might happen if anyone found out about tonight. The next morning, Shayla woke up early to make Maya's favorite breakfast, French toast with cinnamon. As she cooked, she hummed her mother's old gospel songs, the ones that always made hard times feel a little lighter. "Mom, you're in a good mood," Maya observed, sitting down at their small kitchen table. "Just feeling grateful," Shayla replied, sliding a plate in front of her daughter. "For you, for our home, for everything we have. Even for your job at the fancy restaurant where people act like they're better than you?" Shayla paused, thinking about the young man from last night. Everyone's fighting their own battles, baby. We don't always know what's going on in someone else's life. After dropping Maya at school, Shayla headed to the bank. She needed to transfer some money from her emergency fund to cover her credit card. As she stood in line, the TV in the bank lobby was showing news coverage about Barron Trump's disappearance and safe return home. Sources say the teenager was found unharmed late last night, the reporter announced. The Secret Service has declined to comment on where he was during the 3-hour window. Shayla kept her eyes down, focusing on her deposit slip. She thought about the sad young man in her section, how his shoulders had relaxed as she treated him like any other customer. Everyone deserved a moment of peace, even the president's son. Her phone buzzed with a message from her manager. "Come in early today. Need to discuss something important." Shayla's stomach dropped. In her 5 years at Le Petit Bistro, she'd never been called in early for a discussion. But she straightened her shoulders, just like her mama had taught her. Whatever was coming, she would face it with dignity. As she left the bank, she didn't notice the black SUV parked across the street, or the man inside watching her through tinted windows. She didn't know that, at that very moment, security footage from Le Petit Bistro was being reviewed in a high-security office, or that her simple act of kindness was about to turn her whole world upside down. All she knew was that she had a shift to get to, a daughter to provide for, and a New York trip to save up for. Sometimes that's all you can focus on, the next step forward, even when you can't see where the path is leading. Le Petit Bistro looked different in the morning light. The crystal chandeliers that sparkled so magically at night now cast strange shadows across the empty tables. Shayla's footsteps echoed through the quiet restaurant as she made her way to the manager's office. Mr. Peterson was waiting for her, along with 2 men in dark suits she'd never seen before. Their faces were serious, and they stood perfectly still, like statues in a museum. "Ms. Jackson," Mr. Peterson said, not offering her a seat. His face was pale, and he wouldn't meet her eyes. "There's been a situation." One of the men in suits stepped forward, holding a tablet. "Ms. Jackson, we need to discuss your actions last night regarding a particular guest." Shayla's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "I treated all my guests with respect, just like I always do." The man turned the tablet around. On the ID screen was security footage from the previous night, showing her serving Barron Trump. The footage was grainy, but she could clearly see herself bringing him water, taking his order, and later running his credit card, both his and hers. "You failed to alert security about a high-risk individual," the second man said. "This was a serious breach of protocol." "Protocol?" Shayla's voice cracked slightly. He was just a young man who needed dinner and a moment of peace. Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "Ms. Jackson, you've put this establishment at risk. What if something had happened to him while he was here? The liability alone..." He trailed off, shuffling papers on his desk. "I was just being kind," Shayla said quietly. He was upset. He needed someone to treat him like a normal person. "Kind?" The first man's voice was sharp. "He was missing for 3 hours. The Secret Service was searching the entire city. Your kindness could have cost people their jobs, or worse." Shayla thought about Maya's cookies from the night before, about teaching her daughter that kindness mattered more than anything else. She stood straighter, channeling her mama's strength. "If you're asking if I would do it differently, knowing he was hurting and needed help, no, sir, I wouldn't." Mr. Peterson sighed heavily. "Then you leave us no choice. Ms. Jackson, your employment at Le Petit Bistro is terminated. Effective? Immediately." The words hit her like a physical blow. 5 years. 5 years of late nights, of aching feet, of missing school events, but making it up to Maya with breakfast French toast. All gone because she'd helped someone in need. You'll receive your final paycheck by mail, Mr. Peterson continued, still not meeting her eyes. Please leave your apron and name tag before you go. With trembling fingers, Shayla unpinned her name tag. 5 years reduced to a piece of plastic with her name on it. She placed it on the desk along with her folded apron, remembering the photo of Maya in the pocket. "May I?" she asked, reaching for the apron. Mr. Peterson nodded. As she retrieved Maya's photo, one of the men spoke again. "Ms. Jackson, we advise you not to speak to anyone about last night's events. It's a matter of national security." Shayla almost laughed. National security? She'd served dinner to a troubled teenager and paid for his meal when his card declined. Since when was kindness a threat to national security? Walking out of Le Petit Bistrot for the last time, Shayla felt strangely calm. The morning sun was warm on her face, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell was ringing. She thought about Maya's New York trip, about their rent, about all the bills that wouldn't stop coming just because she'd lost her job. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline, "Security footage shows unidentified waitress harboring first son during disappearance." Below was a blurry image from the security footage. Her face just clear, enough to be recognizable. The comments were already flooding in, people arguing about whether she was a hero or a threat, making up wild theories about her motivations. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered, her mama's favorite prayer in times of trouble. As she walked to the metro station, her phone kept buzzing with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. News stations, probably, wanting their piece of the story. But she had more important calls to make, starting with Maya's school, to tell them they might need to withdraw from the New York trip. The thought of disappointing Maya made her eyes sting with tears, but she blinked them away. They'd survived tough times before. They'd survived this too. What she didn't know was that at that very moment, in a large white house not far away, a young man was sitting at his desk, writing a letter that would change everything. And in another part of the city, a thick, cream-colored envelope was already making its way toward her mailbox, carrying news that would make her firing from Le Petit Bistrot seem like a blessing in disguise. But for now, all Shayla could do was hold her head high and keep walking. Maya's photo clutched in her hand like a lifeline to everything that really mattered. By the time Shayla reached their apartment building, her phone had died from all the incoming calls and messages. Mrs. Rodriguez from next door was waiting outside, clutching a newspaper. "Shayla, mija, you're all over the internet." The older woman hurried over, her face worried. "They're saying such different things about you. Some calling you a hero, others—" She shook her head disapprovingly. "I just did what anyone should do," Shayla said quietly, taking the newspaper. There she was on the front page, the grainy security footage making her look like some kind of shadow figure. The headline read, "Mystery Waitress, Secret Service Breach, or Silent Guardian." Inside her apartment, Shayla plugged in her phone and watched it light up with dozens of notifications. Her social media accounts were flooded with friend requests and messages from strangers. Some praised her kindness, others accused her of endangering the first son. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about a simple act of human decency. She was deleting another batch of messages when Maya burst through the door, her backpack falling to the floor with a thud. "Mom, everyone at school is talking about you." Maya's eyes were wide. "Sarah showed me the videos people are posting. They're analyzing everything. What you said, how you moved, like you're some kind of spy or something. Shayla sat down heavily on their worn couch. Baby, come here. Maya curled up next to her mother, just like she used to when she was little. Why don't you tell them what really happened? Clear your name? Because the truth isn't about clearing my name. Shayla stroked her daughter's hair. It's about protecting a young man's privacy. He deserves that much. Maya was quiet for a moment. Like how you don't tell people when I have a bad day and cry after school? Exactly like that, Shayla smiled, her heart swelling with pride at her daughter's understanding. The rest of the afternoon brought more chaos. News vans appeared outside their building. Reporters called out questions as residents came and went. Mrs. Rodriguez brought over her famous enchiladas and stood guard at their door, shooing away anyone who tried to bother them. Shayla's old high school friend Teresa, now a journalist, called twice. Girl, let me tell your side of the story. These people are making up wild theories. Someone on Twitter is saying you're part of some huge conspiracy. But Shayla just replied with a text. Some stories aren't mine to tell. That evening, as they ate Mrs. Rodriguez's enchiladas, Maya scrolled through her phone, reading out comments from various social media platforms. This one says, "You're a guardian angel in disguise," Maya giggled. Oh, and this person wrote a whole thread analyzing your body language from the security footage. They say you have military training because of how you carry the water pitcher. Shayla couldn't help but laugh. Baby, the only training I have is from 20 years of waitressing and raising you. Then Maya's face grew serious. Mom, are we going to be okay? You know, with money and everything? Shayla reached across the table and squeezed her daughter's hand. We've got love, we've got each other, and we've got good people around us. The rest will work itself out. As if to prove her point, their doorbell rang. It was Mr. Chen from the corner store, bringing bags of groceries. No charge, he insisted. You always help others. Now let us help you. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed, Shayla sat in the dark living room, watching the lights of the news vans through their window. Her phone showed 97 missed calls and hundreds of unread messages. But among all the chaos, one notification caught her eye. A private message from an account with no profile picture. The username was simple, B. Trump. Her finger hovered over the message for a long moment. Finally, she turned off her phone, without opening it. Whatever it said could wait until morning. Tonight, she needed to focus on updating her resume and finding a new job. What she didn't know was that across the city, more than one powerful person was taking notice of her quiet dignity in the face of the media storm. Tomorrow would bring letters that would change everything. But for now, she was just a mother trying to be strong for her daughter. As she got ready for bed, Shayla whispered her mama's favorite prayer. Lord, help me be the person my daughter believes I am. Looking at Maya's peaceful sleeping face in the next room, she knew that was all that really mattered. Not the EO, headlines, not the viral videos, not even the unopened message on her dark phone. A week passed like a whirlwind. The news vans had mostly disappeared, though photographers still lingered on the street corners. Shayla had applied to 12 restaurants, but as soon as they recognized her name, the interviews ended with polite smiles and empty promises to be in touch. She was sorting through another stack of bills at the kitchen table when Maya burst through the door, waving an envelope. Mom, the mailman asked me to give this to you, specially. Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. It feels fancy, like wedding invitation paper. Shayla took the cream-colored envelope, running her fingers over the thick paper. Her name and address were written in elegant handwriting, but there was no return address. Inside, was a single sheet of paper, the letterhead bearing a familiar hotel logo that made her gasp. "The Windsor Hotel?" she whispered. The Windsor was the most prestigious hotel in D.C., where presidents and foreign leaders often stayed. The letter was brief but clear. They were offering her a job as their lead restaurant hostess, with better pay and benefits than she'd ever had at Le Petit Bistrot. "What is it, Mom?" Maya peered over her shoulder, but before Shayla could answer, someone knocked at their door. It was their regular mailman, Tommy, holding another envelope. "Sorry to bother you, Ms. Jackson, but this one's marked urgent. Had to get a signature for it." This envelope was different, plain white but heavy. Inside were two things, a handwritten letter and something else that made her hands shake. "Maya, baby, could you go start your homework? I need a minute with this." Once Maya had gone to her room, Shayla unfolded the letter. The handwriting was young, a bit messy, but trying to be neat. "Dear Ms. Jackson, I've started this letter 100 times this week. Mom says sometimes the hardest things to say are the most important ones. That night at the restaurant, I was having the worst day of my life. Everyone always sees me as someone to protect, someone to watch, someone to judge. But you just saw me as a person who needed kindness. I know you lost your job because of me. I know people are saying crazy things about you online. But instead of telling your story to the media or trying to get famous from it, you stayed quiet. You're still protecting me, even now. My mom told me how you paid for my dinner with your own money when my card didn't work. She also told me about your daughter Maya and the New York school trip she might miss now. That's not fair. Inside this envelope is a check. It's not from my parents or the government. It's from money I've saved from my allowance. Please use it for Maya's trip. It's the least I can do, but that's not all. I told my mom about how you treated me that night, and she wants to help too. She has some ideas, but she wants to talk to you first. The job offer from the Windsor? That was her first step. You showed me that kindness doesn't need an audience. I'll never forget that lesson. Thank you for everything. Barron P.S. My security team says sorry for being rough with your manager. They were just scared. Shayla's tears fell on the letter as she pulled out the check. The amount written on it made her gasp. It was enough not just for Maya's trip, but for 3 months of rent. Her phone buzzed. The mysterious B. Trump message from a week ago was joined by a new one. Did you get the letters? Mom wants to meet for coffee. Just you and her. No press, no security circus. Your choice. Shayla sat at the kitchen table for a long time, looking at the 2 letters. The job offer from the Windsor seemed too good to be true. And Barron's letter, so honest and heartfelt, made her think of her own mama's words about how kindness has a way of coming back to you. Mom, Maya called from her room, can you help me with my math homework? Coming, baby. Shayla quickly tucked both letters into her drawer. She wasn't ready to share this with Maya yet, not until she figured out what to do next. As she helped, Maya, with her fractions, her mind kept drifting to the prospect of meeting with Melania Trump. What could the former First Lady want to discuss? The job at the Windsor was already more than generous. Later that night, after Maya was asleep, Shayla took out the letters again. The check felt heavy in her hands, not just with its amount, but with the weight of a young man's gratitude. She thought about sending it back, but her mama had also taught her that sometimes refusing a genuine gift could be its own kind of unkindness. She picked up her phone and looked at the messages from B. Trump. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she thought about what to say. Finally, she typed, "Got the letters. Coffee sounds nice." She hesitated for a moment, then added, and thank you. Not for the check or the job offer, but for seeing the value in kindness. Your mom raised a good young man." As she pressed send, Shayla felt a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. Tomorrow she would tell Maya about the New York trip being back on, but not about the rest, not yet. Something told her this was just the beginning of a much bigger story, one that would need to unfold in its own time. For now, though, she had math homework to check, a coffee meeting to plan, and a daughter to hug extra tight in the morning. Sometimes life's biggest changes came wrapped in the simplest moments, like serving dinner to a lonely teenager on a quiet Tuesday night. The Windsor Hotel lobby gleamed with marble and gold, but it was the smile of the head manager, Ms. Chen, that made Shayla feel truly welcome on her first day. "We've been following your story," Ms. Chen said warmly, leading Shayla through the grand lobby. Not many people would choose kindness over protocol. That's exactly the kind of person we want here. Shayla's new uniform was tailored perfectly. No more scratchy polyester like at Le Petit Bistrot. Her name tag was engraved brass, catching the light from the crystal chandeliers overhead. But the biggest difference was how people treated her. Here, she wasn't just staff, she was Ms. Jackson, respected and valued. During her first week, she learned the Windsor's way of doing things. Every guest was a VIP, but more importantly, every guest was a person who might need a moment of kindness. It felt right. Like everything she'd always believed about service finally had a home. Maya noticed the changes, too. With better hours, Shayla could help with homework before her evening shift. They had breakfast together every morning now, and the dark circles under Shayla's eyes were fading. "Mom, you're humming again," Maya said one morning over French toast, like Grandma used to do when she was happy. Shayla smiled, remembering her mama's kitchen songs. "I guess I am. How about you, baby? Excited about the New York trip next month?" Maya nodded enthusiastically, but then her face grew curious. "Mom, where did the trip money come from? And how did you get this amazing new job? It all happened so fast after, you know." Shayla busied herself with the dishes, avoiding her daughter's sharp eyes. "Sometimes blessings come when you least expect them," she said carefully. It wasn't exactly a lie, but the whole truth would have to wait. The truth was complicated. Her coffee meeting with Melania Trump had turned into 3 meetings, each one more surprising than the last. Shayla found herself taking mysterious phone calls during her breaks, studying business plans late at night after Maya was asleep, and meeting with people whose names she'd only seen in newspapers. "Just trust the process," Melania had told her, elegant as ever in her designer suit. "You have a gift, Shayla. Not just for service, but for seeing people, making them feel human. We're going to help you share that gift with the world." Now, 3 weeks into her new job, Shayla had a secret email account full of plans, proposals, and possibilities that made her dizzy just thinking about them. But she couldn't tell Maya yet, not until everything was certain. Her phone buzzed with a text from Barron. "Mom says the papers are almost ready. You nervous?" Before she could reply, Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on their door. "Shayla! Maya! Come! Quick! You're on TV again." They rushed next door to find a morning show doing a segment about the waitress who changed Washington. The hosts were interviewing regular customers from Le Petit Bistrot, all talking about Shayla's small kindnesses over the years. "She always remembered my wife's allergies. When my father was sick, she'd save his favorite dessert. My daughter was having a hard time at school, and Ms. Jackson would leave little notes of encouragement with her meal." Maya squeezed her mother's hand. "You did all that?" "Those were just little things," Shayla whispered, but her eyes were wet. "Little things add up," Mrs. Rodriguez said wisely. "Like drops of water filling an ocean." That evening at the Windsor, Shayla handled check-ins with her usual grace, but her mind kept drifting to the mysterious meetings, the late-night planning sessions, and the future taking shape behind the scenes. A distinguished-looking man in a business suit approached her desk. "Miss Jackson, I'm here about the property on 7th Street. Mrs. Trump said you'd be expecting me." Shayla glanced around to make sure Maya wasn't within earshot. Her daughters sometimes liked to surprise her at work with homework questions or just a hug. "Yes, of course," she said quietly, pulling out a folder she'd been keeping hidden under the desk. "I've reviewed all the documents you sent. I just have a few questions about the kitchen layout." What she didn't notice was Maya watching from behind a large potted plant, her eyes wide with curiosity about what her mother was planning. But Maya was her mother's daughter. She knew some secrets needed time to bloom, like the flowers in their window box at home. Life was changing fast and strange as a dream, but Shayla held on to her mama's wisdom. Change is just God's way of dancing with us. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, but you always keep your heart open to the music. And somewhere in that dance of change, between the grand marble halls and secret meetings, between hope and uncertainty, Shayla could feel something wonderful taking shape. She just had to trust the process, as Melania said, and keep her heart open to the possibilities. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of changes. Maya's 8th grade graduation was today, and Shayla sat in the school auditorium clutching a thick envelope in her hands. The secret she'd been keeping all these months was about to change their lives forever. The Windsor Hotel had given her the whole day off, with Ms. Chen insisting, "Family moments are precious, Ms. Jackson. Enjoy every second." The morning had been spent doing Maya's hair, taking pictures, and trying not to cry every time she looked at her baby girl in her graduation dress. "And now," the principal announced, "our student speaker, Maya Jackson." Shayla's heart swelled as Maya walked to the podium. Her daughter stood tall, just like her grandma would have wanted. "When I was little," Maya began, "my mom taught me that kindness isn't just something you do, it's something you are. But I didn't really understand what that meant until this year, when my mom lost her job for being kind to someone who needed help." A murmur went through the audience. Everyone knew the story now. People called her brave. They called her foolish. They tried to make her story fit their own ideas about what it meant. But my mom just kept being herself, kept being kind, even when it was hard. She taught me that the right thing and the easy thing aren't always the same thing. Shayla wiped tears from her eyes as Maya continued. "Some of you know my mom now works at the Windsor Hotel. What you don't know is that every morning she still makes breakfast for our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez, who has arthritis. She still helps Mr. Chen from the corner store carry in his deliveries. She still remembers everyone's names and their stories, because to her, everyone matters." In the back of the auditorium, Shayla noticed movement. A tall teenage boy in a baseball cap slipped in with 2 women, one elegantly dressed, the other in a dark suit. Her heart skipped a beat, but she kept her eyes on Maya. "So when people ask me what I want to be when I grow up, I don't just say, a doctor anymore. I say I want to be like my mom. Someone who knows that the biggest changes start with the smallest kindnesses." The applause was thunderous. Maya beamed, her eyes finding Shayla in the crowd. As the graduates received their diplomas, Shayla could hardly believe this poised young woman was her little girl. After the ceremony, as families gathered in the school courtyard, Shayla took Maya's hand. "Baby, there's something I need to tell you. Actually, a few things." But before she could continue, a familiar voice spoke behind them. "Ms. Jackson? Maya? I hope we're not interrupting." They turned to find Barron Trump, much taller than he'd been that night at Le Petit Bistro, standing with his mother Melania and another woman who carried a briefcase. Maya's eyes went wide. "Mom?" That night at the restaurant, Barron said, smiling at Maya, "Your mom showed me what real kindness looks like. She inspired me to do better, to be better. So I wanted to be here today." Melania stepped forward, elegant as always. "Shayla, shall we tell them?" Shayla nodded, her hands trembling as she opened the envelope she'd been holding. "Maya, remember when I said blessings come in unexpected ways? Well, Barron and his mother have created a scholarship in honor of that night at the restaurant. It's called the Kindness Changes Everything Scholarship." The woman with the briefcase stepped forward. "Maya Jackson, you are the first recipient. A full ride to any college you chooses, plus graduate school if you decide to pursue it." Maya's graduation cap fell from her hands. "What? But that's not all," Shayla continued, her voice shaking with emotion. "You know all those mysterious meetings I've been having? Those phone calls? Baby, we're opening a restaurant." "The Kind Table," Melania added with a warm smile. "A place where no one gets turned away hungry, where kindness is always on the menu. Your mother will be the owner and manager. The property on 7th Street, Maya whispered, remembering the conversations she'd overheard. "Mom, is that what all those secret meetings were about?" Shayla pulled her daughter close. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but we had to make sure everything was perfect first." Barron stepped forward, holding out a small wrapped package. "This is for the restaurant. I thought it should be the first decoration." Inside was a framed photo, the grainy security footage from that night at Le Petit Bistro, showing Shayla serving dinner to a lonely teenager. Below it was engraved, "Kindness changes everything." As their friends and neighbors gathered around, congratulating Maya and asking questions about the restaurant, Shayla felt her mama's presence stronger than ever. "Change is just God's way of dancing with us," she'd always said, looking at Maya's radiant face, at Barron's proud smile, at Melania's gracious nod. Shayla finally understood. Sometimes the dance leads you exactly where you need to be. They had all changed since that Tuesday night at Le Petit Bistro. A lonely teenager had learned about genuine kindness. A former First Lady had found a way to make a difference quietly, without cameras or headlines. And a waitress who'd always believed in the power of small kindnesses had discovered that sometimes those small kindnesses could transform not just moments, but lives. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared with her camera. "A picture! We need a picture of this moment!" As they posed, Maya in her graduation robes, Barron in his baseball cap, Melania elegant as ever, and Shayla still hardly believing it was all real, the flash captured more than just smiles. It captured the moment when all their separate stories became one story. Proof that in a world that could sometimes seem cold, kindness still had the power to change everything. The autumn breeze carried the smell of fresh bread and brewing coffee. Down 7th Street, as Shayla stood before the doors of the Kind Table. The restaurant's windows gleamed in the early morning light, and the gold letters on the glass caught the sun just right. Where kindness is always on the menu. "Ready, Mom?" Maya asked, holding the keys. She was home from her first semester at college, having insisted on being here for opening day. Shayla touched the small framed photo by the entrance, that grainy security footage that had changed everything. Below it now hung a simple wooden box with a sign. "Pay what you can. If you can't pay today, pay it forward tomorrow. "See, your grandma would be so proud," Shayla whispered, thinking of her mama's wisdom about kindness coming back to you. The staff began arriving, all carefully chosen, many of them people who'd faced their own struggles. There was James, a veteran who'd had trouble finding work. Maria, a single mom like Shayla had been. And Tommy, their former mailman who'd retired but wasn't ready to stop working. "Miss Jackson!" Tommy called out, pointing down the street. "Look who's coming!" Mrs. Rodriguez was leading what looked like half the neighborhood toward the restaurant. Mr. Chen from the corner store carried a huge bouquet. Behind them came familiar faces from Le Petit Bistrot, former regulars who'd followed the story and waited for this day. But it was the tall figure in the back that made Shayla's heart warm. Barron Trump, now in college himself, walked beside his mother. No baseball cap needed today. They'd become regular visitors during the restaurant's preparation, with Barron often sitting at the counter, doing his homework while offering menu suggestions. "The first customers have arrived," Melania said with a smile, gesturing to a group of teenagers huddled nervously near the door. Their clothes were worn, and they kept checking their empty pockets. Shayla walked over to them. "Welcome to the kind table. Today, breakfast is on the house for everyone. Tomorrow and every day after, you pay what you can, when you can." The kids' faces lit up as they were led to a sunny table by the window. Shayla watched as Maya brought them menus, chatting and making them laugh, just like she'd seen her mother do countless times. The morning flew by in a blur of coffee cups, warm plates, and familiar faces. Every hour brought new stories. A businessman paid for his breakfast and left enough to cover 10 more meals. A young mother with 3 kids found courage to ask about the pay-what-you-can policy, then cried when Maya explained it. 2 elderly sisters who'd read about the restaurant in the paper took the bus across town just to say thank you for giving them hope in humanity. Near lunchtime, Barron took his usual spot at the counter, now marked with a small plaque. Where kindness began. He'd insisted on keeping it simple. No mention of his name or that night at Le Petit Bistrot. "You know," he said to Shayla as she poured his coffee, "I almost didn't come in that night. I was too embarrassed, too angry at everything. But something about this feeling." He gestured around the warm, bustling restaurant. "It was here even then, in how you treated me." Shayla squeezed his hand. "Sometimes we all need someone to see us. Just us, not our labels or our struggles." The afternoon brought more surprises. Mr. Peterson, her former manager from Le Petit Bistrot, came in looking sheepish. "I was wrong," he said simply, handing her an envelope. Inside was a check, a donation to the restaurant's Pay It Forward fund. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the windows, Shayla gathered her staff, her family, both blood and chosen, for a quiet moment before dinner service. "My mama used to say that kindness is like bread," she told them, her voice soft but strong. "You make it fresh every day. You share it with everyone who comes to your table, and somehow there's always enough to go around." Maya slipped her arm around her mother's waist. "Tell them the rest, Mom. Tell them what Grandma said about tables." Shayla smiled, looking at the diverse group gathered around her. "She said every table is a chance to make the world a little bit bigger, a little bit kinder. Every meal is an opportunity to feed not just bodies, but hopes." The evening ended with an unexpected guest, a teenage boy, cap pulled low, trying to be invisible. Shayla recognized that look, remembered another boy on another night who'd needed the same thing. She led him to the counter, poured him a glass of water, and simply asked, "Rough day?" As she watched Maya serve him with the same gentle kindness she'd learned from all those years of watching her mother, Shayla felt the circle complete itself. The security camera footage on the wall no longer seemed like a reminder of what she'd lost, but rather a marker of what she'd found, a way to turn one moment of kindness into a lifetime of them. The Kind Table wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof that sometimes the biggest dreams start with the smallest gestures, that every act of kindness, no matter how simple, creates ripples that can change lives in ways we never expect. As she locked up that night, Shayla looked back at her restaurant, her dream made real through an unlikely chain of events that started with simply seeing someone who needed help. Above the door, the words caught the last light of day. Where kindness is always on the menu. And in that moment, she knew. This was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Sometimes, life's greatest blessings come disguised as challenges, and the finest meals are seasoned with kindness and served with love. Thank you for joining us for A Heart of Gold. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still matters. Where are you listening from? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing from our global family of storytellers and story lovers. If you enjoyed this tale of unexpected kindness, you'll love our next story. Click the video on screen now to continue your journey with us. Remember, like Shayla taught us, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. See you in the next story.